Parental alienation is not a single behavior. It is not a moment, and it is not defined by one dramatic event. It is a relational process that unfolds over time through repeated actions and omissions that interfere with a child's attachment to one parent without a legitimate protective justification. To understand alienation accurately, it is essential to look at patterns rather than isolated incidents. Alienation rarely begins with a child openly rejecting a parent. It typically begins with subtle relational distortions that appear reasonable on the surface, but accumulate in their impact. One of the earliest indicators is friction around communication. Phone calls may be monitored, delayed, shortened, or described as inconvenient. Messages may not be passed along. The child may say it feels awkward or uncomfortable to initiate contact, even though no direct prohibition exists. These small interruptions quietly weaken attachment continuity. Another early indicator is fragmentation of time. Schedules become rigid in one direction and flexible in the other. Transitions are inconsistent. Last-minute changes occur frequently and predictably disadvantage the same parent. Each instance seems minor, but together they erode predictability, which is foundational for attachment security. Children are highly sensitive to emotional cues. They notice facial expressions, tone shifts, silence, and withdrawal. When a child expresses enjoyment or affection related to one parent and is met with subtle disapproval, sadness, or emotional withdrawal from the other, the child learns that some emotions are unsafe. Over time, affection becomes regulated rather than spontaneous. Closely related is conditional permission. Access to one parent may be framed as optional, but only in one direction. Statements such as, "You don't have to go if you don't want to," appear empowering. But when refusal is emotionally rewarded and compliance carries emotional cost, the choice is not free. Children adapt their behavior to preserve connection. Narrative shaping often begins quietly. Neutral or positive past events are reframed with doubt or reinterpretation. Phrases like, "I don't want to say anything bad, but," or "you may not remember it clearly," introduce uncertainty. Over time, especially in younger children, memory becomes increasingly malleable. As these pressures continue, the child's role begins to shift. The child may start to take responsibility for the emotional well-being of one parent. They may justify restrictions by referencing that parent's stress, fear, or pain. They may adopt adult reasoning to explain relational decisions. This role reversal, known as parentification, violates the attachment hierarchy and places emotional burden on the child. The child also begins to internalize loyalty conflicts. They may suppress positive emotions after time with one parent. They may minimize enjoyment or avoid discussing it altogether. They may appear anxious about being perceived as disloyal. Attachment becomes zero-sum, where closeness to one parent threatens security with the other. Identity distortion may follow. The child may reject traits, interests, or values associated with the targeted parent. They may reshape their self-concept to maintain alignment with the favored parent. At this stage, alienation is no longer just about relationships. It begins to shape identity. Cognitively, the child may begin using language that is not developmentally typical. They may reference abstract concepts such as boundaries, toxicity, manipulation, or respect without concrete, lived examples. Their explanations sound rehearsed or legalistic. This is borrowed cognition rather than independent reasoning. Emotionally, the child may appear flattened or detached when discussing the loss of a parent. There is little sadness, grief, or confusion. Instead, there is certainty. This emotional incongruence suggests suppression rather than healthy adaptation. As alienation advances, resistance to contact becomes more overt. The child may develop intense anxiety, physical complaints, or emotional outbursts around transitions. Refusal escalates even though the parent's behavior has not changed. These reactions are often mistaken for primary anxiety disorders. At this stage, an absence of ambivalence becomes evident. One parent is idealized, while the other is entirely devalued. This black and white thinking reflects psychological splitting rather than healthy differentiation. Global devaluation follows. The rejected parent is described as wholly unsafe, unloving, or bad. Past positive experiences are erased, denied, or reinterpreted. The child may automatically align with the favored parent in any disagreement, regardless of facts or personal experience, and dismiss contradictory information without consideration. Cruel or demeaning behavior toward the rejected parent may occur without guilt or remorse. The child may rationalize the behavior as deserved. This does not reflect strength or independence. It reflects attachment detachment. In severe cases, false beliefs become fixed. The child maintains rigid accusations even when disproven. Attempts at clarification or repair are rejected. Autonomy itself becomes threatening. The child appears anxious when asked neutral questions or encouraged to think independently, and defers to the anticipated reaction of the favored parent, even when that parent is not present. Efforts at reunification or repair may be actively resisted. Therapeutic interventions are framed as dangerous or unnecessary. Reconciliation is treated as betrayal. Over time, anger may give way to indifference. The child no longer reacts emotionally to the rejected parent at all. This is not healing. It is attachment collapse. Throughout this process, one of the most diagnostic indicators is what does not happen. Healthy parents actively support their child's safe attachments, even when adult relationships are strained. In alienation, support for repair is absent. Neutrality replaces encouragement, and obstruction is passive but persistent. Interference consistently flows in one direction. Mistakes repeatedly disadvantage the same parent. Rationales change, but outcomes do not. Resistance to neutral scrutiny is common, including avoidance of balanced evaluation and selective disclosure. Parental alienation is not defined by any single behavior. It is defined by sustained, directional interference that reorganizes a child's attachment system. By the time rejection becomes visible, the process is often long established. That is why the subtle signs matter most. Children's attachment systems respond to lived experience, not intent, explanation, or justification. Once those systems reorganize around loss and loyalty conflict, the effects extend well beyond childhood.